I've said it before and I will say it again. Thanksgiving is the Super Bowl of sides. So today I've chosen 3 recipes from the Pillsbury Family Cookbook. This book was originally published in 1963, and I'll talk more about it a little bit later. Side dishes are my favorite part of a holiday meal. For real. Like, yeah, the turkey's really good or whatever your main dish is, but come on, it's all about the sides for me. So the 3 that I have selected today, they do go along with more of a Thanksgiving or Christmas theme, but they might be a little bit different than what you would normally make. I'm trying out the sweet potato coconut puff recipe. I have not always been a sweet potato fan. When I was a kid, I was just not interested in them, basically. It's probably not until I was like 20 years old did I start to really enjoy sweet potatoes and all the different things that you can do with them. This one has coconut in it, and it wouldn't be Thanksgiving without sweet potatoes, would it? I am cutting this recipe in half. So I have 2 sweet potatoes here. They have been cooked, they have been mashed. Made these a little bit earlier today, and I did just warm them slightly a few minutes ago because they had been in the fridge. I think they will combine better with everything that I have going on here if they're just a little bit warm. 1/4 of a cup of orange juice. I have 2 tablespoons of butter. I went ahead and just kind of cubed this up because I think it's gonna combine with things better that way rather than leaving it in one chunk. 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg as well. And then just a dash of pepper. And I have my hand mixer out because I do have to beat this until it's fluffy. I would say that's pretty fluffy. Fold an egg and 1/4 cup of coconut. So the full recipe for this actually has 1 egg in it, and there are a couple things you can do with a recipe like this if you want to divide it in half. You can use a smaller egg. Typically recipes that I use go for like large sized eggs, so you can get a medium egg. You may be able to use the egg white or the egg yolk, one or the other. This egg needed to be slightly beaten, so I did that, and I'm just going to use half of it. I wouldn't necessarily do this for something like, I don't know, a baking recipe where you really rely on the number, like specifically the number of eggs that you're using. Something like this, like a casserole, you know, it's a little bit easier to cut in half. I don't do it all the time, but in this case, you know, we're doing our best. You know what? I think you are doing your best, especially at this time of year when you're trying to cook and host and clean and do everything. It is really fluffy, I gotta say. Just whipping some of that air in there like really did some magic. Here is 1/4 cup of coconut. I'm gonna use half of it for now. You put half of it in the sweet potatoes, then you use the rest to sprinkle on top. So I need to fold that in just like I folded the egg in. I'm trying to keep it light here. I'm telling you what, it is so windy today. So if you hear some howling in the background, that is probably what it is. I had the windows open, had to shut them, it was too loud. Fluffy. Spoon into buttered 2-quart casserole, 1-quart casserole, since I'm cutting it in half. And you know how much I love a Corningware 1-quart casserole. And I had to go with the blue corn flour this time because I just feel like so many people had this, their grandparents had it, their aunts, their moms had this growing up. There's a very good chance that this design would show up on your Thanksgiving table. Pour this on in, keeping it gentle. I also love the way these bright orange sweet potatoes look with this white and blue casserole dish. So I'm just gonna smooth this a little bit. And finally, I'm taking the rest of my shredded coconut and I am gonna sprinkle that on top. And now I just have to bake this for 25 minutes at 350 degrees. There she is. Dishing this into my little dish here, it was super light and fluffy. So I think it's gonna be really good. Also, it smelled so good baking because it was toasting the coconut that was on top of the casserole. Still very hot, but I can't wait. I gotta try this. Not super sweet. I mean, you get the sweetness from the sweet potato and the orange juice. You can taste that hint of citrus in there, but there's no other sugar or anything. So that's really nice. If you, like, I am a fan of sweet potatoes in both savory and sweet dishes. This kind of like hits right in the middle. It's just a hint of sweetness, but then I used salted butter and there's some salt and pepper in here that gives it that like savory edge. It has a really good texture too. I'd like to thank Factor for sponsoring today's video. It feels like the holidays are coming at me at top speed right now, and there is just so much to do. But when I'm feeling overwhelmed, it's nice to rely on Factor for some convenient and delicious meals. Lucky for me, Factor has 35 fresh, never frozen meal options per week to fit a variety of dietary needs: vegan and veggie, calorie smart, protein plus, and more. I decided to try out this vegetarian tamale bowl today. It says it comes with spiced sweet potatoes and pickled jalapeno crema. I'm in. All I have to do is poke a few holes in the film at the top, pop it in the microwave for about 2 minutes, and it's ready to eat. Factor also offers snack options like small bites, juices, and this delicious mango smoothie. It's also super flexible, so you can adjust your order size and even skip a week when you need to. If you're ready to try Factor, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code 50cookingbooks to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. That's code 50cookingbooks at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Thank you again to Factor for sponsoring this video. My grandma often made scalloped corn at holiday meals, so I decided to give this corn custard scallop a try and see how it compares. This recipe starts with a couple of pieces of diced bacon. I just need to fry those until they are crisp. My bacon is crisp and I've removed it to a paper towel lined plate. And now I am just left with the bacon fat, which is what I'm gonna cook some onions and peppers in. A tablespoon of diced onion. And then this is a 1/4 cup of diced orange pepper. It says green pepper in the recipe, but I happen to have peppers, pieces of peppers left from my Halloween video, and I'm using what I have. So I'm gonna cook all of this until it is tender. Everything has softened up, gotten tender, so now I need to add most of the rest of my ingredients, which include a can of creamed corn, 1/2 cup of evaporated milk. Yes, again with the evaporated milk. I have my bacon from earlier, that's going back in as well. Stirring a little to combine. I have a teaspoon of sugar and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Ooh, it's really thickening up nicely. I have a 1/4 cup of fine dry breadcrumbs. I'm gonna stir all of that together before I add one more thing. And that ingredient is 2 slightly beaten eggs. And the heat is off at this point, and I actually let my eggs come to room temperature. And the reason I did that, and the reason that I'm adding them last, is because I do not want them to cook and scramble in this mixture. You know, if I'd added them first after I cooked the onion and pepper, there's a good chance that I would have ended up with like a Denver scramble. So that is why I waited to kind of like add it as one of the final ingredients before I put this mixture into a casserole dish. So I have a 1.5 quart casserole dish, and I am gonna put this mixture in there very carefully. Don't spill. So that's what we have so far. And now I need to sprinkle this with just a little paprika. And this time I remembered I don't have a shaker top on my bottle of paprika, so we're just using a little spoon. This is going to add some nice flavor and also nice color as well. Got a little enthusiastic in those spots, but that's all right. And this is a custard, so I am going to bake it in a water bath. And I happen to have like this 7x11 pan. It's kind of perfect for this casserole dish. Yes. So I have some hot water in my kettle back here, not boiling, just hot. And I need to fill this up so it's like 1 inch or so up the side of the casserole. And I've preheated my oven to 375 degrees. Okay, nice. Oh, it smells so good. It smells like the holidays in this kitchen right now. So I need to bake this in a 375 degree oven for 35 minutes. There we are. I did have to bake this for an extra 10 minutes or so. So instead of 35 minutes, it was baking for 45 minutes. I put a butter knife in the middle and it just wasn't quite set up. So left it in there for another 10 minutes and now it is all set. Kind of like corn casserole kind of thing. It does, I will say, it does kind of look like the corn, like the scalloped corn my grandma used to make. And I know that people like to make the very famous like Jiffy corn casserole. Hers was not quite like that. So I'm wondering if it's like this. You know it's gonna be hot. I just can't let these things let these things go, can I? Gotta try them. Oh, that is good. Yeah, okay, so the peppers, the onions, the bacon, like they all impart some really delicious flavor on this. Scalloped corn that my grandma made was like halfway between this and a Jiffy corn casserole. So it was like somewhere in the middle. This is delicious though. It is very custardy. It is like, I don't think I can show it very well, but it's jiggly. It's a little jiggly. It is set though. The one thing I would say, and I was thinking about this as I was making the corn, I think I would like it to be a little more textured. I think you could add a little bit of frozen corn to this, like whole kernel corn, because the cream corn that I used, I don't know, maybe there are other types out there that are better. The cream corn that I used, the corn itself, the pieces were very, very small. I don't know, broken down. So I think you could add a little bit of just corn kernels to this. It would make it a little more texturally interesting, but I will say the flavor on this is delicious. This recipe felt important to include. I'm making glorified rice. Here's what it made me think of. Dishes that show up on family gathering menus, you know, where everybody brings something. And there are sometimes dishes that like you don't eat all the time. Maybe you eat them only at these family gatherings, but you always expect to see them there. And it's like Aunt Jeannie's glorified rice. It's not Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever holiday without it. It's just one of those dishes where it feels like tradition, I guess. Beat cream in a small bowl until stiff. So I am cutting this recipe in half. Can't have too much fun with the glorified rice, can I? Also, I don't actually have an Aunt Jeannie. I was making that part up. It just kind of generally sounds like a familiar thing. I have specific relatives that make specific dishes, and I'm sure that you do too. So there is my cream. I guess we just turn it into whipped cream. I'm a good part of the way there on this whipped cream, which it only took me about a minute. I'm telling you, this hand mixer is wonderful. I know it took a minute because I have a timer on the hand mixer at the top. At this point, I'm gonna add my sugar and my vanilla because I have to blend those in as well. So I have a tablespoon of granulated sugar and a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. I'm just gonna continue to mix that until I have whipped cream. Alrighty, my whipped cream is looking pretty good, so I'm gonna set that aside. Coming on in with another bowl. Combine rice, pineapple, and banana. So I have a cup of rice that I have cooked, 1/3 of a cup of crushed pineapple that I've drained. And it says banana. Banana appears in the original recipe, but there's a little note at the end of the recipe that says 1 cup miniature marshmallows may be substituted for bananas. And it got my wheels turning because miniature marshmallows, they just sound so right. And this is a festive occasion. So we're going fruit flavored, rainbow colored mini marshmallows just to add some extra pizzazz. Because we all need a little pizzazz. These marshmallows look positively neon colored in this bowl. Like when they hit the moisture from the pineapple, they just get glossy and like so vibrant. Oh my goodness. Heck yes. So now I'm gonna add my whipped cream to the rest of the mixture. I have seen this dish also on like buffets or salad bars, especially like Amish buffets. I always see some sort of rice, like glorified rice dish like this. Fold, fold, fold. Also, this is a very easy dish. Maybe Aunt Jeannie was onto something. I love how it looks. The marshmallows are making my day. But I do want to go ahead and chill this for a little bit before I give it a taste. I simply could not forget the maraschino cherry on top of this dish, right? I think it's crucial. And any opportunity to use a little dessert coupe, you know, gonna give this a try. I've had glorified rice or a very similar kind of thing before. Okay. It's very light and fluffy, and actually it's pretty lightly sweetened. There's not a lot of sugar in the whipped cream. You're getting mostly the flavor of the pineapple and those little fruit flavored marshmallows, right? It's just fun, right? It's just fun. This is not something I would make all the time. Gotta admit, wow, there goes the maraschino cherry. We'll take care of that later. I can taste the pizzazz from those marshmallows. The Pillsbury Family Cookbook was originally published in 1963, and yes, this video comes hot on the heels of the Pillsbury Kitchen's Family Cookbook video. I don't know how I ended up doing that. I just did. This is another one of those catch-all, it has everything kinds of cookbooks. And you know I love these. It's got a little bit of everything. Whatever dish you're trying to make, you probably find a basic recipe in here and some variations on top of that. This particular book also comes in a binder edition, which I don't have, and that's okay, but I am on the lookout for it in the wild, of course. I always like to try to get things first in the wild. I have cooked from this book before. I think I made a full day of 1960s meals from this. So this book mostly contains photos, not really a lot of illustrations other than illustrations for like demonstration purposes. Let's look at some of those photos, shall we? They do have some very, very nice color photographs of the food, which I enjoy. I just found one here. Oh man, look at that. I mean, do you know what that is? That is stuffed celery. Not just any stuffed celery, it is sardine stuffed celery. That is from the appetizer chapter. Oh, look, just flipped right to this one. This lovely, beautiful holiday bread. It is a filled Christmas tree, so a basic sweet dough with dried apricots in it and some sugar, salt, and water. That does sound very good. And I think you can probably like pull this apart. How festive. It's the dessert chapter. That looks good, like a chocolate souffle maybe. Oh, this is a good one. I really wanted to show you this because look at all these sandwiches. It's a 2-page spread of different types of sandwiches. Looks like we got a hero sandwich and maybe like a club sandwich, like a triple decker. There's some sort of like grilled sandwich, probably a grilled cheese or something, in the luncheon and supper dishes section of the book. I love those particular chapters when a cookbook has those. You know, it's fine to have like poultry, beef, fish, that kind of thing. But the luncheon and supper dishes, those are usually the chapters that hold all the casseroles and the fun things and the types of things that I grew up eating a lot of times. Like this luncheon and supper dish chapter has Hungarian goulash. They have something called a cowboy casserole, meatballs in spaghetti sauce, quick and easy beef stroganoff, and Monday meat pie. Oh, and I love this photo, this pastry and pies section. I actually made a YouTube short for Pie Day, March 14th, and I used this image. I guess I can link that in the description. I don't know. I don't make a lot of shorts or reels. It's so much harder for me to make short form content than it is long form content. VIP cookery, so special occasions for special people, and I would say that that is pretty special. Some kind of fruit kebab, but stuck into a pineapple. Oh my, okay, and now look at this. This looks like a beautiful buffet, and I love the plates in this photograph. I always love seeing plates and the different patterns. And speaking of plates, they do have a little spread on table settings, different types. Formal service, the informal service, something for a reception, something for a tea. And then we have menus, and I really enjoy menus. It's just like, here's what we would have put together at this moment in time in 1963. There's a hot dinner for a cold day, which consists of New England boiled dinner, cucumber cottage cheese salad, hot cornbread squares, apricot plum compote, and coffee and milk. And then I like this one. A teen committee meets for lunch. That is the name of the menu. Cheese and frank crescents. Yes. Okay. I would go to this meeting for the cheese and frank crescents alone. Quick sweet tomato aspic. I would probably not go for that. And cherry-filled brownie torte and milk. They served a lot of milk. They pull you in with the cheese and frank crescents, and then you get there and it's tomato aspic. Easy on the budget family dinner. We love an easy on the budget recipe. I am going to be doing my budget series in January, so do keep an eye out for that. Subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss it. Like I said, it's just one of those cookbooks that has everything you would need. This would have made a really excellent gift for newlyweds, someone who is learning to cook, maybe someone who was moving out and like setting up their household, and this would have had a lot of things that would help them learn to cook if they didn't already know. But let's talk about the recipes that I made today. So I decided to do another Thanksgiving side dishes video because I love side dishes. Like in general, side dishes are my favorite food. I've talked about this before, but especially at the holidays, like that's what I'm going for. You know, I'm going for the corn casserole, the macaroni and cheese. You know, I'm going for the cream spinach or the sweet potatoes. So one of the things I was actually thinking about too, when I was choosing my casserole dishes and things for this video, sometimes I try to coordinate them a little bit. Sometimes I just kind of go willy-nilly. And I was thinking, I'm like, should I try to like coordinate colors or match patterns or something like that? And I sat with that for a minute, and then I thought about what holidays usually looked like when I was a kid. Everybody brings something, you know, maybe the person who's hosting, they make the main part of the meal, they make the turkey, they make the ham, and maybe a couple of special side dishes. But then when everybody else brings something, they all bring it in different dishes. So they're gonna look like it's gonna be a mishmash, and I love that. So that's what I did here. I actually chose, like, I didn't try to coordinate anything, I didn't try to match anything, and I was like, this is authentic, right? This is how it really was when I was growing up anyway. But the dishes I made today, I tried to stick with something that you would maybe typically find at a holiday meal, you know, your sweet potatoes, your corn, a random salad of some kind, but I wanted to make something a little bit different. So sweet potatoes, you'll often see them with like marshmallows on top. This is in the United States anyway. I don't know about other places, but we like to do sweet things with our sweet potatoes often, or sometimes it'll be cinnamon, brown sugar, that kind of thing. I love those. I think that's great. The sweet potato coconut puff that I tried was a little bit different than those recipes. It didn't have a lot of extra added sweetness. It had some, but it was that coconut. That coconut was like an added extra feature. So it kind of was on the line between savory and sweet, which I loved. There was butter in the recipe, so I just went ahead and added salted butter. And then, you know, the extra sweetness from the coconut. I think it gave it a really nice texture too. And I absolutely loved that like little bit of coconut on the top that got very toasty in the oven. The second recipe I tried was for glorified rice. And that is something that I'm familiar with. It's not something I like go out and make a lot or anything, but I often see that particular dish on like buffets and salad bars and things like that, especially Amish buffets. And I know people have different ways of making it. I think some people make it with like Cool Whip. This one was made with whipped cream, just lightly sweetened whipped cream at that. It didn't have, you know, a heavy sweetness to it. And I felt the need to include it because I feel like there's always a salad or a dish that, you know, someone in your family makes, and it's like the only time of year that you eat it. It's tradition, and it just wouldn't be like whatever holiday without that dish. And I feel like this glorified rice is kind of like that. I chose to use rainbow colored fruity marshmallows because for a festive occasion, why not? Add some extra zing to it. I feel like the word glorified was used very often in cookbooks, you know, in like the 30s, 40s, 50s, into the 60s. I see the word glorify and glorified a lot. It wasn't overly sweet or heavy. It was kind of like a fluffy rice pudding, right? I think it's just kind of a fun, like retro kind of dish. Now, this recipe was included in the dessert section of this book, but I have seen it as a salad in other books. So that's why I decided to include it here. I thought, you know, this is definitely something that you would see at a holiday gathering. It just felt that way to me. It did end up drying out over time a little bit, so I wouldn't make this too far ahead. Maybe the morning of, you know, whenever you're gonna serve it. And finally, I made corn custard scallop, and I wanted to make this because my grandma always made scallop corn, and I wanted to see like how was this going to compare. It wasn't quite the same, but it was very, very good. Probably my favorite of the three recipes. It had a lot of things in it that would add a lot of good flavor. You know, the bacon, onions, peppers, very tasty. I did have to bake it a little bit longer. It just took 10 minutes longer for me. So you might want to keep an eye on the time if you do decide to try this one. I know I talked a little bit about the texture. I think it needed some more like whole corn kernels in it. So if you are shopping for like your cream corn or anything like that, if there's a brand out there that has like bigger pieces of corn, you might want to go in that direction. Or I would say, I think you have room to add maybe like a half a cup of frozen corn kernels or canned corn kernels, and you wouldn't like throw off the balance of the recipe too much. But again, the flavor was so good. The texture thing that I'm talking about with the whole corn kernels, you know, I don't think it's absolutely crucial that you do that. It still was a very good dish. So I hope you liked this video, and I hope you found some inspiration for your upcoming holiday gatherings. Thanks again to Factor for sponsoring today's video. You can click the link in my description down below, use code 50cookingbooks for 50% off your first Factor box plus free shipping. If you love cookbooks and recipes from the 1960s, I have an entire playlist and I'll link it in the description down below. I'd like to say a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to join us over there, I'll leave a link in the description so that you can do that. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I post videos about food, vintage cookbooks, and retro recipes every week. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.